Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. All bluster, no bite, man. Let's hold our horses. Stop taking it to the stupid. Jaron Ennis and Terence Crawford. Let's get this clear. I don't know why people even entertain this conversation. Terence Crawford and Jaron Ennis will never, ever fight. It's over. Ship sailed. Crawford's retired. And to be quite frank, I just don't anticipate him returning to the sport of boxing. Maybe if they give him $500 million. But at the same time, how much money does a man need and does a man want? Especially when you already have multiples of millions of dollars. But this whole talk about Ennis and Crawford, I understand why people find themselves still indulging in the conversation, especially when you see recently Ennis saying if he would have fought Crawford, he would have knocked him out. Now to that I say, in the most respectful way, to Jaron Ennis, hey yo, hold your horses. And let's stop taking it to the stupid. Now when fighters start saying stuff like this, knocking out somebody who's never been knocked out, and someone who's only dominated every fighter they've been in the ring with, majority of them by knockout, and I think 11 of them or something got away, and they lost by majority unanimous decision. So I really don't know what the hell Jaron Ennis was thinking. But when fighters say this, confidence is part of the job. Selling fights, you got to make bold claims. You got to stir the pot. But there's no fight to sell here. But maybe it helps to sell his fight with Xander Zayas. I don't know, but he and Crawford aren't fighting. But maybe this just shows you that Jaron has a dominant mentality. And, with these gladiators, they're all a bunch of A-type personalities. And, they're all about establishing their dominance inside the ring as well as outside the ring. So I think it's normal behavior for elite fighters, not necessarily delusion. But at the same time, man, you got to remain grounded in reality when you start coming out here talking about knocking out Terence Crawford. And I know some people say, well, look, man, anything's possible. The best fighter doesn't win. It's the fighter who performs the best on that night, like you say. And I agree. However, I got to push back. You got to push back when you hear somebody say something like that about Crawford. His resume is proven, man. Multiple divisions, 5 divisions, 3-time undisputed. He's already solved elite fighters. What makes you think he wouldn't be able to solve Jaron Ennis? What elite fighters has Jaron Ennis solved? Which ones? I'll wait. I give you 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. All right, man. You couldn't come up with it. Now I'm telling you, Jaron Ennis can fight. He got the shit. You can see he passes the eye test. He has a really big opportunity when he faces off with Xander Zayas coming up to prove to the world that, look, I'm the real deal. But at the same time, you can say you're the real deal, but you got to show us that you're real deal. You're the real deal like Crawford. Crawford, his biggest weapon, man, Crawford was adaptability. Jaron's going to have to show us some adaptability at the elite level. He hasn't done that. But now he's got to step closer to it. Show us the adaptability. Show us you can do to these elite fighters what you did to Roman Villa, what you did to Evander Cian, what you did to Isma Lima, what you did to Stan Eunice. Show us that you can do that. Switch hitter, orthodox southpaw. Show us that you can be successful doing that at the elite level. If you can make the reads early in the fight, mid-fight, and go on, man, to make the adjustments to regain control, regain the momentum, show us what happens. Show us what happens if you get hurt, how you deal with adversity. Show us that you can adjust round by round. And see, those are the things Crawford did. Those are some of his biggest weapons. But if I was to try to break this down into like an example pattern, say you kind of start slow, gather data, break opponents down. That just shows you the level of IQ that Crawford had and great fighters have. With Jaron Ennis, he's shown that, but he hasn't shown it at the elite level, and that's the difference. Now, as far as the finishing ability, we all know about Terence Crawford. KO, KO, KO. Precision is greater than volume. He didn't just win. He figured out fighters and he destroyed them. And this is why there are concerns about Jaron Ennis. They're like, let's just say if we just entertain the conversation, Jaron Ennis against Terence Crawford. Let's just have fun with the conversation. Some fans are like, well, the conversation doesn't end up being fun for too long because now we're talking about defensive gaps. He gets hit more than expected. He relies on reflexes a lot of the times. You can't do that in there with a guy like Crawford. He gets overconfident in exchanges. His hands are down. His chin is in the air. He's trading unnecessarily. Leaves himself open. That is a suicide mission against a guy like Terence Crawford, and it could prove to be detrimental when he faces off with Xander Zayas. And then, of course, they talk about even if they were to make a fight with Ennis against Crawford, who's he fought? What's the level of opposition? The talent is obvious, but the resume is not as proven at the elite level like it is for Crawford. So, I mean, people want to entertain a hypothetical breakdown, so let's do that. Early rounds, Ennis, fast, explosive. Crawford, observing, minimal risk, downloading data. Probably goes to the ring smiling because Ennis lands a shot here or there. Mid-fight, Crawford begins. Timing counters, switching stances. Ennis' mistakes start getting punished. Now Crawford's sitting there looking at him laughing with his tongue hanging out of his mouth. Late rounds, Crawford in control. Ennis forcing the risky exchanges. Traps are being set by Crawford. Likely outcome, Crawford stops him, or definitely unanimous decision. But this is the reality check here. Ennis has the youth, he has the speed, he has power. He's dangerous to anyone, and I want to make sure I'm crystal clear on that. Now, Tim Tszyu and Earl Spence, you know what I'm saying? We're going to find out who's bluster and no bite, and who's the real deal. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, Tim Tszyu has hooked up with Jeff Finich. He's his new trainer. He's a former world champion, known for pressure fighting, known for discipline, known for mental toughness. Jeff Finich may be the missing piece to solve the Tim Tszyu puzzle, to make him into a great fighter. You know, Tim Tszyu has some talent. You know, he has a lot of potential. He's an ex-champion. But a lot of people are kind of seeing Tim Tszyu as damaged goods. But that's why I wanted to mention his trainer, Jeff Finich. Did a little research on him. He was a badass. He was a badass in his time. And one thing that I think is going to be very interesting is that Kronk influence. He's associated with that aggressive, powerful style, emphasis on the jab and forward pressure. When I think about that, it makes me think about Tyson Fury hooking up with Sugar Hill and kind of adhering to that Kronk style and what Tyson Fury brought to the ring when he faced Deontay Wilder in the second and third fights. Now, of course, there's still a little bit of a question about Tyson Fury in those fights, but you understand what I'm saying. He changed the trainer changed his style, and Tyson Fury had a lot of success. So with Tim Tszyu, maybe with this new trainer, he can make some necessary refinements. And now we'll see Tim Tszyu behind the jab, forward pressure, and having some success. Now, against Earl Spence, that's easier said than done, but Earl Spence been out the ring for damn near 3 years, folks. So when you got a guy like Jeff Finich and what he's trying to add to Tszyu, I think you better look out for that jab, better defense under pressure, more controlled aggression, being much better fighting on the inside. And I just think he makes Tszyu a more complete fighter, not just tough. And if Tszyu can get that jab off on Spence, I wonder if all that scar tissue is going to start to just break apart on Earl Spence's face. And then you'll see the referee out there in Australia, because that's where the fight's taking place. Maybe he jumps in and stops the fight a bit prematurely because of the cuts that Spence is developing. But hey, I'll say this. We got to wait and see how it plays out. But Earl Spence, he got himself a little situation. This thing about no tune-ups, I don't know about all that for Earl Spence coming back. But that's why he gets a lot of respect put on his name. Always takes real fights. Concerns, the layoffs, the physical wear that he's experienced from the car accident and from boxing, and the past damage from the car accident and from boxing. there's a lot on the line. For Earl Spence, he's either going to have a statement win or a career-defining loss. He's either going to show people, I just took a little vacation, was able to come out here, man, recalibrate, and now I'm back. What happened with Terence Crawford was just because I was dehydrated, weight drained. I wasn't a tenth of who I normally am, and that flight was a fluke. But if he gets in there and he loses to Tim Tszyu, majority fans aren't going to care that Earl Spence has been out the ring for a while and has a new trainer in Ronnie Shields. They're going to still sit there and say, this is a career-defining loss. Earl Spence Jr. should have stayed away from the sport of boxing, came back just to lose again. Now you got to deal with all the internet bullshit and everything that was going on the first time. And now he comes back and goes through this crap. He could start to relive it all over again. But in my opinion, Tim Tszyu has a new trainer. Earl Spence has a new trainer. I think it takes a while to gel with your new trainer. But for Earl Spence, if he wants to win this fight, he's got to control that distance. He can't let Tim Tszyu get on that front foot. Use that jab, just outbox him, avoid the wars, go to the body. But just be careful, because Tim Tszyu can crack, and Tim Tszyu can fight. And if he's catching Earl Spence with some hard shots, I wonder what's going to happen to Spence. Now for Tim Tszyu, he got to just go in there and put pressure on Spence. Make him uncomfortable. Make him want to go back into retirement. Make it physical. Test his durability, his mental resilience. See where he's at. That's what Tim Tszyu needs to do. Because if he can get in there and make Spence uncomfortable and make him feel like, nah, this ain't what I want to do anymore. Training camp is one thing, being in a real fight is another thing, and being at home with family and out there on my ranch, that's a whole nother thing as well. So I think for Tim Tszyu, he got to test Spence's durability. But I'll tell you this, as far as the fans, they're like, Spence is a proven elite fighter, man. We got to give him credit. We can't go against him. But as far as the fans' perception when it comes to Tszyu, they're like, y'all can say what you want. Tzew's dangerous. He can beat Earl Spence. But at the same time, they're like, we got to question Tim Tszyu because of what he went through with Fundora in 2 fights, and what he went through with Murtazaliev, and how some people feel in his most recent fight, he just looked like he took a step back. But again, they're blaming Pedro Diaz and everyone out there, especially the Aussie fans. They're super excited about him working with Jeff. So we'll see what the future holds for him. I think most people are slightly leaning towards Spence. I think people need to just understand with Earl Spence, the man ain't in his prime no more. He's been gone for a minute. But I can understand slightly leaning towards Spence, but the one who's been active is Tim Tszyu, who's been out here active, more hungry than ever, gonna show grit when he gets in there with Spence. I think Tszyu can overwhelm him. And I just got to be honest with you and with myself. I think he can overwhelm him, and I think he can shock everybody. But again, when you start changing trainers and shit, I just don't understand these guys going from trainer to trainer to trainer. But hey, they got to do what's best for them. Anyway, we're going to find out if it's all bluster and no bite. Somebody going to get crossed over and then get them ankles broken. And it ain't going to be me. He'll keep cool, I'm in the breeze.